The Wavelengths present a conversation with everyday people doing extraordinary things, making the world a better place. Meet Cathy Truehart, RN, BSN, MA, Counseling Psych. She's a certified Labyrinth Facilitator, a mindfulness-based grief counselor, a spiritual counselor, a life coach, a Reiki master, a reflexologist, and a hospice consultant. We hope you enjoy our conversation with Cathy.
Hello, I'm Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, I'm Jante.
And we are the Wavelengths.
I have the honor of introducing our guest this evening. Her name is Cathy Truehart, and I actually met her through common interests that we had, and we connected and started talking, and she did not share all this stuff with me that she's so incredibly qualified and educated in. It's a long list, but just going to touch on a few and let Cathy share her story. So what's really cool is she is a certified Labyrinth Facilitator. She's also a grief counselor and a hospice consultant. She also does energy work like Reiki and reflexology. She's a Reiki master. She is a spiritual counselor and a life coach. She's written a book and so much more. So Cathy, we are so excited to have you on our show. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So would you mind sharing a little bit of what you're doing right now in your life?
Right now in my life, I have the blessing of being retired. And right now I'm kind of in a transitional place. I just finished taking care of my mother. Well, I took care of my father for 5 years, then my mother for 5 years. And so now it's about me. It's all about me now. So it's a pretty exciting time for me. And so because I have done Reiki and reflexology my whole life, I have several clients. Sorry to say, I really don't need to have the money. I am supported. My husband and I have been very blessed in our life, and we have enough money that we really don't have to work right now. So I get to just become the person that I've always, I've really worked hard on becoming the best person that I can be. And I feel like I'm finally at that place where I get to just really sink into my true authentic self. And it's just been a real gift. So I really just kind of, I have several clients. I do Reiki and reflexology. I also have a bioenergy mat that is wonderful. I use it every day. It actually kind of helps with microcirculation. So it's kind of allowing the body to heal itself. So that's kind of, what it would look like for me. And I just happen to have this toolbox full of all kinds of things. I'm also a certified holistic health nurse, hospice nurse for 40 years. And and like you said, I am a Labyrinth Facilitator. And so when somebody comes to me, it's like a hodgepodge. It's just like whatever spirit guides us to do. There's usually a labyrinth walk. There's usually some, for sure, reflexology, and you get on my mat. But there's just so much more. There's so much, we just kind of go with whatever is happening. We can do forest bathing. I'm not certified in that, but I live on a lot of land. So sometimes we just connect with nature and whatever somebody's needing and whatever we're guided to do, it's kind of what happens.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. So you've been a hospice nurse for over 40 years.
Mhm.
Did you start out with these interests, or how did you get from birth to here?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Why is it so much fun to talk about yourself, huh? Well, it all started, how much time do we have? It all started when I was 5 years old, and I had a near drowning experience. I lived in a very small town, population 500, and I almost drowned. And it was just this beautiful experience. I saw the light, didn't hear voices, but I saw the light and just felt like I was in a state of nirvana. It was just a beautiful, loving, wonderful experience. And ever since then, from the time I was 5 years old, I've always known I was to be of service. I've always known that I had a purpose-driven life. I've been a seeker my whole life. Sometimes to the point, like now now it's like, I'll always be a seeker of truth, but it's like, it's not like I'm searching like I used to. It used to be like
Right.
I was almost desperately searching. Now what? Now what? And was constantly going from one thing to the next just because I just want to learn whatever I can learn on this big earth school. And I just sometimes would get in trouble taking on way too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I have learned, so now I'm in this state of grace where I've learned to not take on too much and to just, so even though I'm a seeker, it's not, I feel like I found myself, I found the true authentic self, and have learned enough that I don't have to be so desperate. But I mean, it has led me to wonderful experiences my whole life. And so, and I knew when I first heard the word hospice, it was in the 70s, and I hadn't even heard of what it was. And the minute I heard what it was, I said, oh, that is what I will be. That's what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I was never afraid of dying, as most people with a near-death experience, so I kind of knew that that this would be my life path. And it has served me well. It's just been such an honor and a privilege to help people cross over to the other side. And it has fulfilled my search for metaphysical stuff and spirituality. I mean, it's such a spiritual vocation. It just feeds me spiritually. People would always say, oh, how can you do that work? Oh my gosh, it must be so depressing. And my classic line would always be, well, I certainly did my share of crying. I mean, the embarrassing part would be when I would be crying and the family was not.
Yeah.
And that happened more than once. It happened a lot. Because, when I speak my truth, I know I'm speaking my truth when I'm either got tears or goosebumps.
Right.
Unfortunately for me, it's more tears. So when I would be just even explaining to people what hospice can do for them and what we can provide for them, I mean, I would get very emotional, just even because hospice just is in my blood. It's just such a wonderful service to offer people. And so I did write a book about it. I had a day once that I thought, oh my God, I could write a book about this day. I mean, I went from what was the beginning of, changing a Foley catheter, breaking up a fist fight with a family, sitting on a porch with this man who his 9-year-old daughter was dying. She'd been my patient for 9 months, and I just had an epiphany on the porch. Then I was changing kitty litter. Then I had a pronouncement and was saging the guy. I mean, it was like a movie. I just said, oh my God, I could write a book about this day. And that thought, I planted the seed that day, and for 4 years it germinated. And then finally, I meant to check. I think it was it was somewhere around 2010 that I actually wrote the book. And then I just re-edited it. I rewrote it or just added a few things just this year. So I republished it this year. Mainly because there were a couple of things I kind of added too much about myself. It was kind of embarrassing. It's like, oh, I didn't need all that personal information about me.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed reading it.
Did you? Oh, good. Well, you've got the newer version.
Right.
And that one is the one that I added because after taking care of my mother, who I have adored, and just, she's just been the greatest gift in my life, and couldn't wait to take care of her. My whole life, I thought, oh, I hope I get the privilege of caring for my mother. I mean, I've always been into gerontology. My first job was in a nursing home at age 15. I have a minor in gerontology. I love elders. I love listening to their stories. I've always wanted to write a book, listen to the voices of the old women. And the first 3 years of taking care of her was so beautiful. I loved it. It was great. The last 2 became so excruciating, and not because she was hard to care for, because she was not. She was the sweetest, most positive person on the planet. But it was just the monotony of every day being the same, her saying the same thing. She had a mild dementia. So she'd say the same thing. We'd do the same thing. She ate the same thing, it was just, I just got sick of Groundhog Day and just, I mean, I'm 71 and she just died. It hasn't even been 2 years. And it was just like, how many good years am I going to have left? When can I have my life? And so I started feeling kind of resentful. And so I just thought, if I felt like this, if I get to the point where I just couldn't take anymore, I didn't want to do this anymore, then what about the people that have really difficult parents to take care of? And there's a lot of them. As a nurse, I know. And so I just felt like, I felt like I did a good job not feeling guilty, and just trusting that, I'm human. And if I feel like this, so many others have, and it might be helpful for them to hear about it. So that's why I felt that I could rewrite the book, because I wanted to write another book. And I thought, well, if I'm not happy with the first book I wrote, then why would I be writing another book? I need to be happy with the book and feel good about it. So that's where that went.
Well, and we can get to that. People who want to purchase that book, they could do that on your website.
They're supposed to be able to. I hope they can. My son-in-law made my website. We were actually supposed to be working on it today, but it didn't happen, or this weekend, and it didn't happen. So as far as I know, you can. There's a spot there, so I can't guarantee it, but yes, or just go on Amazon.
Right.
Or Barnes and Noble. You used to be able to get it at Barnes and Noble.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the Labyrinth Facilitator process.
Well, I had wanted a labyrinth for years, like about 20 years. I'd been after my husband that I wanted one. I used to do hospice fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were just these extravagant galas that I would have. I mean, there'd be like 200 people that would come through my house. And I had the last one I did, I said, I want a labyrinth for this. And I knew that there was no way that was going to happen. So then it took 20 years after that, the seed was planted. And so I gathered rocks from Maine. I mean, literally carried great big, huge rocks off the beach. Quite embarrassing, actually. Dropped several on my feet, stubbed my toe many times. So yeah, my feet are not happy with me, nor is my back. But I have, my husband finally helped me build it. So it's a 11 circuit Charts labyrinth. We happen to live on a lead mine. So the outer circumference of the labyrinth are the most great big rocks. Some of them have crystals in them. And so it's really beautiful. They're big, big rocks. I mean, I was so grateful. I thought that the rocks that I'd carried off the beach were going to be the big rocks on the outer circumference. But my husband really surprised me and have these big rocks. So I love my labyrinth so much. And every time I walk it, all the rocks from the ocean are just, I can almost remember every single one of them. And I had this thing with rocks. And I thought, I used to feel guilty because we have a place in Maine, and it's a little tiny, it's Camp Ellis Beach. It's just a tiny little fishing village. And there's a big rock wall, and there's a lot of erosion. So every time I would take a rock, I'd feel a little guilty that, oh dear, I hope I'm not, I'm not contributing to this erosion. So I would kind of be, embarrassed, or feel guilty taking them. And it wasn't until a native there said, oh, no, it's the rock wall that's caused the whole
Erosion.
problem, the erosion. Yeah. It's the seagrass that helps to prevent it. So I was like, oh, good. I can stop feeling guilty. And then, I would be picking up rocks, and I'd say, oh my gosh, I have enough. Why am I doing this? And I used to have these conversations with myself, like, that's enough. It's enough. It's too much. You shouldn't do this. And then finally, I had a conversation with myself and said, you know what? The rocks are speaking to you. Somehow the rocks are speaking to you, and stop questioning it. Stop feeling guilty, and just someday you're going to know what to do with the rocks. And so, I always knew that I was collecting them for the labyrinth, but even the smaller ones, there's a lot of smaller ones. And I still, to this day, I don't need more rocks. My house is so full of rocks. It's ridiculous. I have pots of rocks. People have potted plants. I have potted rocks.
I can relate.
Rocks everywhere. And so I finally just, gave up the judgment of myself, which was a good idea. And that's kind of where my path is now, and I've worked on letting go of judgment my whole life, but it's just really in the past few years that it's really, I'm pretty good at catching myself at any given moment if I'm having an unloving thought, and to be able to just say, nope, I change this. I choose love instead of judgment. So that's kind of been that's really what my life is about now, is about my spirituality, and just embracing my spirituality, embracing my life purpose, and just being the extension of love that I know that that's what I'm here for. And kind of waiting for the call for, how I can best be of service for the planet right now. So if you interviewed me, like 6 months from now, it'll be very different, because I know this. I feel like I've been preparing my entire life for this time right now on the planet. And I feel like we all have. I feel like we all chose to come in here at this time. It's a pretty incredible time to be on this planet, to create a new earth. And so I'm very excited about that, and just know that the land will speak to me. And that's kind of what I've been working on with the labyrinth. My first intention for the labyrinth was that, so many times in my hospice work, especially in grief counseling, so many people just want to connect with their loved ones on the other side. And so whenever somebody talks to a medium, there's always that element of doubt. Was that really them? Was it really them? And I thought, instead of trying to convince people that it was really them, or, that the medium was a good medium, and not just making stuff up, that they should be able to experience it for themselves. And so it was always my intention and my hope and my desire that the labyrinth would become like a vortex for people to connect with people on the other side. And, through the years, there have been a lot of people connect with their loved ones while they're in the labyrinth. Sometimes they don't, and it's disappointing. So, that's kind of one of the things with the labyrinth walk, is that you make sure that, you don't want people to have that expectation and then be disappointed. But but it was just recently that I thought, and I think I'd even mentioned it to you, Sarah, that I was doing research for my next book. And when I was, looking at, empaths, because I know I'm an empath, and I found where it said an earth empath. And I went, oh, that's what I think that's me. I mean, what else do these rocks, they talk to me. I mean, and I don't hear, I don't, I kind of want to be, I'm a wannabe psychic. And that's the other thing, that I have this story that I've told myself my whole life, that my gifts, that my intuitive gifts, I don't use them in this lifetime because of past lifetimes of being persecuted. And I'm sure that's a very common thread with a lot of people. So I've always had that kind of back and forth. If I get too far into, working on the land and shamanic work, and like I always did Native American kinds of traditions, but then something will happen and the fear will come up and it's like, oh no, I can't go there. I can't go there. So there's that whole, I've always had that feeling of being stuck between the world of spirit and the world of matter. And so it's just been recently that I've just really come to want this land, because I know that this land that I live on is very sacred. And I've had people tell me there's vortexes all over the land, and I don't feel them, but other mediums that have been on have said, oh, there's one right there.
Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, I'm not sure, I can't feel it, but I want to be able to feel it. So that's kind of where my energies are going now, of just really wanting to be on the labyrinth. And so I just recently walked the labyrinth, and maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And I thought, okay, my intention to walk the labyrinth. And as a facilitator, that's the beauty of being a facilitator, is to help people, kind of educate them about what labyrinths are, and then help them walk it. So you walk it with an intention. And then we suggest that the 3 R's, like as you're walking in, is the time to release anything that's no longer serving you. It could be an addiction to food or alcohol or whatever. So I release my not addiction, but I would usually say my cravings for, or release this old pattern, or release whatever. And then once you enter the center of the labyrinth, that's your time to open up to receive. Then as you leave the labyrinth, it's a time to return and reflect. So kind of that helps people with the 3 R's, to just give them, you don't have to do that. Anybody can just, do their own thing, but it's just kind of helpful to have that little formula. So I had walked into the labyrinth with the intention of wanting the land to speak to me. So I get in, I wait, I listen, and I don't always get stuff, and I'm the type of person, I want it, written out, and I want it, very clear. I want to hear somebody tell me, I want it word verbatim. So that's why I kind of miss a lot of the intuition that I do receive, because I have an expectation. So sure enough, I didn't really get too much. It was just a great walk. And then I left. Next thing you know, I'm back in the center again. Well, I've had my labyrinth for about 7 or 8 years, and I don't remember ever getting lost and coming back in. And I tell people, it may very well happen, but it's just like in life, we get lost, we take a different path in life sometimes. So I went back in. I said, well, I mustn't have stayed long enough to receive something. So I kind of draped myself over the rock in the center. And what I received is that I am the high priestess of this land.
Oh, nice.
I've been married for 41 years. Not an easy, that's not an easy accomplishment. And the reason I was able to be in this marriage for so long is because I knew we had a sacred contract. And I've never known for sure what it was, but I've just known, I've always felt very sure that that we have, that's, one thing that I know that we have a sacred contract. And so, and that was kind of the message that I got, that was our contract, that we, have been able to be good stewards of this land and to say what happens to this land. And when they said you're the high priestess of this land, the reason I knew that that wasn't me, because I don't use the word priestess. I've never done any kind of, goddess work, or
Right.
I just don't, that's not the terminology I use. So I was like so excited. I felt like that was the first time I really got a message from the land. And within a day or two, a person that I hadn't been in touch with for ages happened to just say, oh, there's this whole priestess summit that's happening, a 2-week-long priestess summit, free. I don't know if you heard about it.
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, it was wonderful. Oh my God, it was so good. And I just thought, I just love the synchronicity when that kind of stuff happens. And so I just knew that that was one of my first and best messages that I got from the land. So I was very excited.
Oh, I can see why.
But but I used to do it before too. There were times, when I also, and if I'm rambling, just feel free to stop me at any time.
Yeah, you're fine.
But my father was bipolar. And so, he suffered terribly with bipolar disorder. And I had symptoms of bipolar. And which was, that's the next book is, the title is My Greatest Teacher, Embracing Bipolar Disorder, because it was my best teacher, or it has been my best teacher. And I remember I was doing education in a nursing home, it's for nurses and nursing assistants. And I would start getting panic attacks or, anxiety. So in
Mhm.
the winter, I would have a huge pot of just dirt. And my office was down by the laundry room and I didn't have any windows. So I would literally just take my shoes off, squat in the pot of dirt before I would go have to present something. And it would help to calm me down.
Right.
So I've always kind of known, and there was always times on the land, there were times that I would just kind of know where to go. And at my worst hours of depression, I always knew if I would just get on the land, if I would just go for a walk and just, get on the land, that it would help to lift my vibration enough so that I could function. So I've always had this connection with the land. And so I'm pretty excited now to really embrace that more. And now that I don't have to worry about or understand how fear and the thoughts of fear are such a catalyst for
Right.
anxiety, depression, you name it, anything. So yeah, so that's a long convoluted. I hope did I wrap it up about the labyrinth, enough about the labyrinth?
Well, this has been so interesting. And as someone who has not yet experienced a labyrinth, I'd just like to know a little bit more about the labyrinth walk. Is it usually just individually or in small groups or both? And then at one point you talked about getting lost in the labyrinth. So there is an intended shape of the path that you're walking. And so it's, and how does that, and I guess that affects the energy. Is it inspired by sacred geometry?
Yep, bingo.
Okay.
Yes, it's based on sacred geometry. They've been around for thousands of years. And a lot of people compare them to mazes, like a maze, but they're not a maze at all. They might look similar to a maze, but a maze is designed to confuse you, whereas a labyrinth is designed to help you find your way. So a labyrinth can be it can be considered like a prayer, a walking meditation. And I've had some of the things, like I had a neighbor once, very manly man. What does he do? He's a welder. And and he walked it on. We had a group. There was a group. Well, it doesn't matter. It's always wonderful, whether you walk it alone or with a group. Groups can be nice. It's nice to have a group energy.
Mhm.
But he just was like sobbing. As he's walking in, he was just like sobbing. So I try to remember to have Kleenex, because you just never know what, some people will walk the labyrinth and they'll just say, oh, I didn't feel anything. And other people just have a profound experience. So it kind of depends on where you're at and, how open you are. And
Mhm.
well,
So
maybe
when you're finding your way, when you're doing the labyrinth walk, are the indicators, are they visual indications that help you find your path, or is it other?
yeah,
Like
the
if
rocks,
visual were walking the labyrinth, how would they find their way through it?
You probably, you would probably want someone to guide you, because the rocks, you can, and if you're unsteady, sometimes I'll even lose my balance a little bit. Tumble rock. But the rock shows you the path. But it just weaves in and out and around and back and forth. And so, the only way you get lost really is oftentimes somebody will just turn to look for something. Or oftentimes people will just feel guided to just stop and, look out. I mean, it's beautiful around where I am. It's like there's rocks and a lot of woods and rocks, and it's really
There probably are vortexes within the labyrinth.
oh, well, I have this friend who is a geologist, and he told me that the labyrinth is right on a fault. This fault goes right through the labyrinth and around our house. And he said that this is like 200 million years ago when the planet was shifting. And I mean, he's got this whole story that I've asked him to write down for me, because I certainly won't do it justice. But yeah, and we used to have people come, the lead mine that we have on our property. We have lots of lead mines on the property, but we had people coming from the University of Massachusetts. A bunch of professors came and said, oh yeah, they're doing this big study in Boston and blah, blah, blah. And we had little kids would come, classrooms would come to see the lead mine. It's a beautiful lead mine. It's a crevice in the earth, and it's about 100 feet long and about 10 feet wide and 25 feet deep. I guess they used to mine it for lead during the Civil War. So the land, like I said, the land is, I know, is very, very sacred. And whenever I've been around mediums that I was around a medium once, I was doing a class with her. We weren't even anywhere near the land. She never saw the land, but she just said, I can just tell you that land is so happy that you're there. The land is so grateful that you are the steward. We recently had a person come, and my husband was considering having our land logged. And we have like 75 acres here. And this just was a few weeks ago. So the guy comes and he talks, and he's talking about how it's so good for the trees, so that they can all, get the bigger ones out so the small ones can grow. And so he's giving me his whole, what's it called? Planned forestry or something like that. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the tears are starting to come down my cheeks. And I'm like, oh no, don't do this. Don't do this. Oh no, this is embarrassing. And then I thought, well, here they are. Nothing I can do about it. Okay. So I said, well, look, honey, I got to tell you, I said, I take being the steward of this land very seriously. And I'm just not sure that this is the best interest for this land. And so I'll meditate on it, but I'm not really sure that this is going to happen. And so, fortunately, my husband was gracious enough to say, we don't have to do that if you don't want to. So,
oh no,
not logging it. Yeah. Except for we fight over one tree that I don't want to go down, and he does. So, but yeah, so the land is, I'm just so grateful to be in this land, and I want to be buried here. And and I have always had the vision that this land will be a spiritual retreat center. And when we built the labyrinth, ever since I first walked my labyrinth, I knew that the labyrinth was going to be the catalyst for the next phase of my life and how I open up to be of service.
Mhm.
And so I've known that for a long time. And I've always felt that this, I mean, since we came here, I thought it might be in my lifetime, but honestly, I don't have a good business sense at all. It's hard for me to accept money for anything. I just don't do well with the money. I don't do well with the organization. So I've actually put it out to the universe that maybe somebody would lease this property to do a labyrinth, because I don't think I could sell the land because I'm too attached to it. But who knows? I trust that this land is going to be used for something very special. And I use it to pray for world peace. Oh, I did a thing that I got a vision in the labyrinth, walking the labyrinth. And I hand wrote every president of every nation in the world with the labyrinth in the center. And I Zen tangled it. So it's just this really neat vision that I had, that I created, because I feel like that the creativity is just such a key to the spiritual life. And it is to mine anyway. I love to be creative.
So I do have a question. I mean, you talked about doing energy work and labyrinth work with people. So obviously they are there with you physically.
Oh, yes.
Do you also work with people virtually?
I have not, no. And, not that I wouldn't, but honestly, I just love to share my land. I love to share my home. I mean, I just feel like the land is important beyond.
So you know how I can connect energetically with you.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that too. Anybody can do that if they strengthen that muscle, right?
Right.
So you could walk the labyrinth.
Oh, yes.
While connected to whoever you're working with, and energetically have them walk it with you.
Right. And I do things like, if somebody's asked me to pray for them or asked me to do some distant Reiki for them, then I will walk the labyrinth for people a lot. And I will chant their name. I will chant their name, and I will do a labyrinth walk for them. But I think you're talking about even extending it
to where you're connected while you were doing the walk.
Right.
So you're like maybe on the phone with them and walking it.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And
the phone I'd probably do good with. I could do phone. The computer is just, for a long time, I just didn't have a great relationship with it. But since COVID, I've come to really love it and appreciate it, and have enjoyed being, experiencing things on Zoom. And one of the things that I do hope to do is have a virtual labyrinth walk. Like I want to walk the labyrinth so that it would be on my website, that people could just, because I had one woman, actually, she was taking a course, and I do have a video of my labyrinth. And have you seen that, Sarah?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should see it.
I will check it out.
Oh, you are going to want to come to my labyrinth.
Well, I already know I want to come visit. I'm just trying to figure out when and how.
Right. But when you see the video, it'll be sooner rather than later. So I think you can get onto it. I mean, you can get onto it if you go to my website, or you can get onto it if you just go to YouTube and put in Walk in the Woods / Cathy Truehart. And I think either or will work too, but I'm not sure. But also on my website.
Right. I'll check it out, and it'll be on the podcast correctly.
Yes. That a girl. Yeah, because it's only 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute video. But so anyway, so this one woman she was taking a course on you know, end of life midwife, I forget what they call themselves, doulas.
Yeah.
And
The death doula.
a
End of
death
life.
doula, thank you. Yeah. And so she needed, part of their assignment was to walk a labyrinth. And so she called me, and we couldn't get a time before her paper was due. It was due like in a few days. So she just saw me walking the labyrinth on the video that we had the video of. And she said that she felt more just watching that than she has in any of the other labyrinths that she's walked. So I thought, oh, well, then I need to have a virtual, because I know you can, there's plenty of other virtual ones out,
Right.
but I want to have that on my website. So
Sounds wonderful.
yeah.
I was just visualizing you with your phone walking the labyrinth, and you look down with your phone, right? Look
Oh, right.
down and then lift your head and look over to the right,
Oh,
look
yeah.
over to the left, take a few more steps forward, and as things change, and then maybe even talking about what you're feeling as you walk it.
Right.
So
Thank you for
anyway,
that.
so very powerful. Well, it sounds like that you are in transition, figuring out what you'll and how and what it looks like you'll be doing next. That you're staying very present in the moment. The labyrinth is
Yes.
part of it.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any sense of any of that? What type of clients you'd be looking for? Do you even know what kind of work you want to do yet, other than facilitating people's spiritual growth and development?
Well, I know that I want to do whatever I can to help with the new earth. So, I mean, but the greatest of all the accomplishments that I've had in my life, my greatest pride is that my children's friends remember me as the Earth Day lady. I used to go into the schools. I remember one time I went into the school, the first one I ever did. There were like 100 little kids in a great big circle in the basement of it was like, kindergarten and first and second grade. We're all in a big circle, and I was doing some, little thing about, not about waste and littering and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, I just talked about that. I told them how I love trees. And I said, do you know, I hug trees. And they go, oh. And I said, I even kiss trees. And they all went, oh. And they just all had a fit. They just all went nuts over it. But then I started, taking it on the road and would go to the 5th and 6th grades, and then I'd do a skit in the center. So I just love that my kids still to this day, their friends will say the Earth Day lady. So I've always wanted to do something with the planet. And so I'm part of the Just Faith Ministries, which is just such a wonderful nonprofit organization. And so I do have a program that I would like to teach on climate change. It's called Sacred Air. And then they also have a program, Sacred Earth, and I think Sacred Water. So I'll probably start with that. So I'll start some classes. I'd like to have them here, or I'll do them in a church, or I'm not really sure where I'll do it. But I think I'd kind of like to have them here just so we can do the labyrinth walks and
Right.
So yeah, we'll
could also have a virtual side to that.
That's true. You and your virtual.
Well,
you can reach more people. You can reach more people. It's the way of the present, not the future.
Yeah, it's just that separation, physical separation, is an illusion, right?
Right.
So we're here to steward the pieces that we've agreed to steward. And obviously, part of that is for you to teach, honor, and respect towards the land to help
Right.
people find that within themselves. And I would hate for that to be limited to your neighborhood.
Right. It's not
You know,
fair.
it's like everybody on this planet could benefit from
Right.
what you have to share, in my opinion, anyway. Um, because the interesting thing is, and a lot of people I don't think understand this, being respectful and honoring the physical planet, its resources, and all of that is reflective of the level that we honor ourselves.
Mm.
Mhm.
So there does seem to be a correlation between not taking care of self and not taking care of the planet.
Well, certainly I know I am guilty of taking better care of others than myself. Only in these last few years that I have learned that the importance of, putting myself first, which is
Right.
not always easy for me as a caregiver. And
Well, it's the nature of caregivers to put everyone else
right,
first.
right. So it's just learning how to, put yourself first once in a while. And
That's part of what we're here to do, is to learn how to take care of ourselves first, because we are a generation of putting everyone else first, and to finally get to this place of everyone else is taken care of. So let's take care of ourselves. Let's take care of what's around us. But then we also can expand. And, we see pictures of the Grand Canyon and the oceans and everything else all the time. Why not show and be on your land? And we see a picture of something and it moves us. And what's the difference between looking at your land or someone else's land and being moved by it? If it's there to be moved, then it's there to be moved from. So you don't necessarily have to be there to experience it and to share it and to show what's there. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of wonderful possibilities.
That's true, because as you're speaking about it, I feel like we can, and those who are listening can connect with it through your voice and through the stories that you're sharing about it. So that's another way of connecting to it.
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
So again, just a reminder that physical separation is an illusion. We aren't separate. We are all connected. And that's part of what you're teaching by teaching about honoring the earth,
Mhm.
because we are connected. All of us are connected to each
Yep.
other, but we're connected to all life on
Mhm.
this planet, potentially other planets and solar systems as well. But
Right.
this is where we are. So it's like you start at home, right?
Right.
So, but that's so beautiful, Cathy, what you're doing. And just, I mean, the sense I get is yeah, you're taking care of yourself, you're honoring yourself better, but there's also this whole sense of letting go and letting God and just going with the flow and where you're directed.
Yep. I'm just showing up.
Yeah.
Showing up every day. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And who would you have me say it to?
Right. And that's just really beautiful. That's beautiful. So it sounds like there's a lot going on in your life, a lot of new coming in, but also writing the books you're writing to help people
Yep.
find the normalcy within their own, what feels like outside the box experiences.
Mhm.
Do you still do the hospice work here and there?
Uh, I really don't. Although, it's just every day. I mean, there's always somebody that's going through some sort of grieving process. So I feel like on a daily basis in my own just social, personal life that I'm always, offering somebody some sort of support. And
Right.
but my spiritual life, I studied the Course in Miracles, have for years, and the Way of Mastery, the Way of Love. You know, and I really do believe that there is no death. And I don't tell that to somebody that's just lost someone, but there is no death, that, you know, it would just change our form. And
Right.
so it does help, you know, it everything feels so connected, you know, and
Yes.
I just feel like hospice is just, it's part of who I am. So I feel like I still just do it every day, but I don't like volunteer
Right.
or, you know,
So
You
if
don't do it the same
somebody,
way you used to.
what's that?
You just don't do it the same way you used to do it.
Right. It's just changed the way it looks a little
so
bit.
if somebody had need of those services and contacted you, that would be okay.
Oh yeah, you know, even just to bounce something off, you know, like, and I mean, every now and then somebody has a less than wonderful experience with hospice. Most people have an incredible experience with hospice, and they,
Mhm.
you know, we get called angels. It's just so wonderful. Everybody really appreciates hospice so much, but there's always somebody that does not have a good experience. And my heart totally reaches out to those people, because, you know, you got one chance to go through to lose a loved one. And, you know, and if it doesn't go well, then, you know, it's so, and I just kind of take it personally, because one should be able to have a good experience, a good death experience, but, and
Right.
it's not always good, you know, no matter, sometimes no matter what we do in hospice, people struggle, and it's no matter what we do. So not every death is beautiful and peaceful. Sometimes it can get kind of ugly, but for the most part, you know, with hospice, we are able to help people have a more peaceful death. But
Yeah.
yeah, the book is really about just a bunch of stories. Like, I just felt like, you know, after 40 years, the stories that I've witnessed, the experiences that I've had are just so sacred to me. And I just
Sure.
couldn't just leave this earth without taking
Right.
my stories with me, you know?
Just to promote the book, because it's not typically something I would read, because I don't have a lot of free time. So
Right,
generally, I like to read that which is escapism,
right,
just personally fantasy type things. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, right? Um, because it's kind of like my relaxation, if that makes
right,
sense.
for sure. Yeah,
But in reading your book, um, it's like I was reading it on the plane when I flew out to California, and I had to put it down until I came back, because there's so many magical moments in it that, like a starburst in my heart kind of magic, that I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this on the plane, because I won't be able to give it 100% of my attention.
right, right,
I wanted to do it at home, where I could really experience the beauty of your experiences and the magic in them all. There's so many serendipitous, what appear to be
right.
serendipitous moments. And yet, and I remember some of them were related to, here's my plan for the day, but whoops, that's not
Well,
going
that
to
did
happen.
never. That's why it worked for me, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not a 9 to 5 kind of gal that goes into an office and sits there. No, I like the unexpected. And, but, you know, just really my reason for running to write the book was just that, you know, we live in such a death denying society. Nobody wants to talk about it. And, you know, the more that you can embrace, I feel like the more you embrace life, death, the more you embrace your own life.
I agree.
And
I agree.
it's just really important to talk about it and not be afraid of
Normalize
it,
it.
and realize that there is something out there that's going to really help you. Like, when I would knock on somebody's door as an admission nurse, I mean, I would feel like I would be the enemy, because all of a sudden, you know, they don't talk about hospice until, oh, sorry, there's nothing else we can do. The only thing
Right.
now is hospice. So it's like, that's like the dreaded word, you know, when somebody's working with a life-threatening illness, that word hospice. So when they hear it, it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is the end. this is, this is the enemy coming in the door.
Right.
So it's just like such a dance to just walk in the door knowing that they're scared and so sad and freaked out. And then I walk out of there and they're just like so lifted up and just so feeling grateful and hopeful. And, it's wonderful. It's just such a wonderful feeling to do that for
Right.
people. And people mostly didn't know, like, what, you can do that. And then, I'd get it, equipment would get there in like less than an hour. And it's like, here they've been struggling for weeks and months. And all of a sudden, all this equipment comes in and all this help comes in. And it's just, and people get discharged from hospice. It's the first thing I tell people. Just because you're on hospice, that doesn't mean you give up hope. Miracles happen every day. That's why I called it the miracle of hospice. Miracles happen every day, and we've seen them. I've seen miracles.
Right.
We discharge people from hospice a lot more often than people realize that we do. So it's just, giving people hope and just helping people realize it doesn't have to be ugly, and that they've got help and support, and then support for a year after for bereavement. I mean, there's just so much that it has to offer. So, and I don't mean to be plugging my book, but I just plug hospice. I'm just plugging hospice.
Yeah, but I'm plugging your book because it's a good book.
And I look forward to reading
We
your
don't
book.
talk about death and what happens around death and our feelings about death enough. So to be able to, talk about it and think about it and start just opening the door to all those experiences that, oh, I didn't know all this was here. Oh, I don't have to bury someone the way it's supposed to be. Oh, I don't have to do this the same old way. And, it's just like getting married. You can have it any way you want it. You can be in a church, you can be in a park, you can, there's all different ways of wanting to go. So,
Right.
and people don't know that.
Yep.
People
And it's
don't
like,
know that.
The only other thing besides the greatest passion in my life right now is to live in Christ consciousness and to live an awakened life. But I also want to have a conscious death too. I want to die consciously. And not a lot of people on this planet die consciously.
Right.
So I'm going to work on that one too.
That's part of the
We'll
new earth.
see.
Part
What's
of the
that?
new earth is creating a new way of doing things.
Exactly.
Not just the physical earth, but the earth of
Right. The whole way of
the
being,
whole,
our
the
whole
whole
way of
way of
being
being.
on
So
this.
we
Greater
know
balance, greater love of
Yeah.
self and others, all that. Well, we could probably talk for another hour.
We probably could.
Good about
However, we are at the end of our time. We try to keep our podcast right around an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. I think we've gone a little bit beyond that, but
we
that's okay. And so just going to say thank you so much, Cathy, for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge and experiences that you have had time to share here. And who knows, maybe we will have you back and we'll do a podcast all on hospice.
There you go. Who knows?
Okay.
Or maybe it will be about whatever's happening here. Maybe it'll be about the retreat center here.
There
We
you
don't
go.
know. It could
Would
be any
love to
number
do
of things.
that.
Well, thank you all very much. It was a blessing to be able to spend some time with you. And we'll talk with you later.
All right.
Blessings.
We hope you have enjoyed our conversation with Cathy Truehart. Cathy can be reached at the website www.trueinnerpath.com. That's www.trueinnerpath.com. Her email, cathytruehart@yahoo.com. That's CATHYTRUEHART @yahoo.com. and by phone at 413-563-1440. Please take a moment to visualize our planet Earth bathed in white light. Everything within, on, and surrounding the planet filled with this white light. And all energies in whatever form moving into and staying balanced for the highest good of all concerned.